Hey guys, it's Matt Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about, wait for it, Premodern. Can you believe it? Another Premodern deck tech. Unbelievable. Can you, who even saw this coming? I certainly didn't. I certainly didn't. But we're gonna do it anyway, so let's strap in, let's get ready. Oh yeah, feel the nostalgia. It's everywhere, and it's coming for you. That's good stuff. All right. So, what do we got today? Well, what do you think? I hope the Savannah Lions probably made you think, "Wow, freaking Savannah Lions. What deck plays that?" Of course, the most famous deck would be White Weenie, I guess, or I guess it's not really any particular deck, but Savannah Lions is mostly associated with the White Weenie archetype, although obviously other decks have played it, like the 2 and 3 color decks, because it's, I mean, pretty much, at least until, the current creature power creep happened, like, Savannah Lions was, like, basically the best thing you could be doing on turn 1, because, like, think about it, 1 mana, 2/1, no drawback for 1 white, amazing. Freaking amazing. I'm gonna drink to that. I'm drinking a little bit. I'm drinking a little bit of beer, so it's okay. It's okay, just a little bit, but that's good stuff. Freaking beer, man. Freaking beer and Savannah Lions. Nothing goes better together than beer or Savannah Lions. I'm a Savannah Lions. Beer's great. Okay. So the genesis of this deck, I was trying to find a good aggro control deck for this format. Biggest problem, there's a lot of good ones, or there's one really good one from back in the day for this format, or at least for old extended, I should say, and that was Miracle Grow. But Grow doesn't work very well without Brainstorm, Force of Will, or Dual Lands. I mean, ooh, God, yeah, those cards are so critically important, and without them, the deck just, I mean, doesn't really work. You know, you're probably better off running Madness, which is a pretty good deck. It's different from what we're gonna talk about today. But if we're looking for an aggro control deck, it's a good Daze deck. Uh, Obviously, it's pretty good at applying the beats and that kind of thing. So um, uh, there's a lot of good kind of sort of aggro control decks in this format. The Counter Rebels is sort of similar to what we're going to be talking about today too. But the real inspiration came from, and this is the weirdest thing ever, I don't even remember what format this deck was for, or where even I got the inspiration from. It's kind of like the old sort of dump truck decks, like at least they share a couple cards, from old extended. So it's kind of similar to that, but I don't know. It was this old white weenie deck, and I played blue for Meddling Mage and like Brainstorm and some other stuff, and then obviously sideboard cards. Um, it's so weird though. I don't remember what format it was for. Was it for extended? It wasn't for standard at the time. I mean, I don't know. Thing was weird. I remember so excited. I spent a lot of money on this deck. I think it was like $100 or something at the time because it got the Exalted Angels and the Flooded Strands and like this, that, and the other, and a bunch of other cards. And I remember getting them because it was so much stuff, and it was like $100, and it's a lot of money. But then like I don't know. It's weird, but I remember it so strongly in my memory. I mean, I guess I just really liked Exalted Angel, and I liked just the aesthetically the deck looked good. I mean, Flooded Strand, God, what beautiful art that card has. Oh man, I love it. I love it. Anyways, so I guess for whatever reason or another, in my head, this old deck that I had made popped up, and I was like, wow, I could play something sort of like this. And so that's sort of where that came from. And I couldn't tell you if there was any particular deck that it came from, or I mean, this is literally like 16 years ago or something, so it's hard to find anything on the internet. Obviously my memory is a little spotty because it's literally like half my lifetime ago. Jeez. Anyways, so let's get to it. What's this deck look like? Well, this is what it looks like, and it's sweet. If you're familiar with White Weenie, again, a lot of these cards aren't going to be too weird. Oftentimes they'll play main deck Disenchants. Seal of Cleansing a little better because you can play it just on curve. You can curve out with it instead of having to hold up mana. Again, a lot of these cards aren't too strange. Again, Savannah Lions, pretty awesome. Great one drop. Mother of Runes. Stuff like Silver Knight. These are all pretty sweet. And these are all not cards that you would be surprised to see in a White Weenie deck. Armageddon Swords, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, the mana base, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But obviously, yeah, we're splashing a little bit of white for stuff in the sideboard and some main deck cards. And then in the sideboard, of course, we got the super awesome Enlightened Tutor sideboard plan, which is first, at least the first time I can remember seeing it was in Legacy a long time ago. But it's probably from Old Extended where that kind of plan originated. So yeah, so let's again, the sideboard is mostly just full of hate cards and Enlightened Tutors and other things like that. Again, nothing too out of place there. So let's take a little bit more in-depth look at the things that might be a little more unusual. So this deck is I wanted to find a nice Daze deck. I couldn't find a good deck to really use Daze, at least consistently, at least not to my liking. I mean, there obviously are decks out there in this format that can do that, but I couldn't really find it, and this deck can't support it. It cannot support it because it's basically just a splash of blue in the main deck for basically just 8 cards main deck, and then afterwards there's other cards on the board. Oh, excuse me. But the deck is very disruptive, but is a bit slow. I mean, that's pretty much any mono white deck, or any deck like this. I mean, without any reach, you're gonna be pretty slow. But we want to be disruptive, and we certainly got that in spades. So this deck is actually kind of more similar to like, say, like Death and Taxes and Legacy, than maybe sort of the traditional White Weenie kind of deck, because, well, obviously the it's the Weather Wayfarer, baby. It's the Weather Wayfarer. This guy is awesome. Let's just talk about this guy for a little bit. First, Weather Wayfarer is awesome. He does a lot of tricks. He's got the sort of land text / tithe text, where if you have less anything, then or less lands, I should say, then you can search for a land. But you can do this in response to stuff. So you can sack your fetch lands, sack your wastelands. So you can tap your wasteland and activate it to target their non-basic. It goes to your graveyard. You have less lands than your opponent at the moment. And then you activate the Weather Wayfarer to search for another wasteland or something. You can search for a Flooded Strain if you need more mana. And you can play the Flooded Strain, sack it, and tap. And yeah, so this thing is awesome. And you can get Undiscovered Paradise, which is great because it produces blue. And then it returns to your hand, so you can keep getting more lands. That's awesome. That's freaking sweet. You get Keldoran Outpost to make more dudes. This is obviously incredible against control decks. And of course Wasteland against multicolor decks. That's sweet. That's super sweet. Weather Wayfarer is the big thing, I think. And then obviously the other big thing I think the deck is Spiketail Hatchling, which is maybe a little less what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little less traditional, orthodox, or whatever. This, I don't remember playing this card before, but obviously when you're spamming wastelands at people, a flying force spike certainly gets pretty good. It has evasion, 2 mana, 1/1 flyer, which is pretty good. So if you're not doing anything, you can at least clock them a little bit. And then obviously once you wasteland them a bunch, basically becomes like a hard counter. So it slows them down a lot. And that's good. That's obviously very good. Obviously, and of course, this Force Spike part is great after an Armageddon 2. And of course, the other big one is Meddling Mage. Now, this card is awesome. Now, it's not so great against some decks, but it is awesome. Some decks with like a lot of different kinds of removal or whatever. Like obviously, mono red, it's a little less good. But versus something like combo decks, well, now we're talking, aren't we? So this card can really shut them down. I mean, shut them down. Think about against something like a Lurin, another deck which I haven't seen too much of in Premodern, but something like a Lurin, you name a Lurin and then they have to kill it. But the thing is, you play Mother of Runes, so turn 1 Mother Runes, turn 2 Melee Mage can be like GG because it's so hard to interact with for some decks. And that's awesome. And the other great thing about Melee Mage is that playing mono white, you're so slow. I mean, you're glacial. I mean, really, compared to a lot of other decks, and so that can be a problem. And so, melee mage helps mitigate the damage that something like, say, like flash fires, anarchy, or massacre, or whatever else would deal to you. And those are because your deck is so slow, it gives your opponent more time to draw them, and you really just you can't beat a flash, or excuse me, like an anarchy, against the red decks because they cast it, it resolves, they probably have a bunch of dudes in play, you're dead. Like there's pretty much not much you can do. So melee mage is really good there, which is great. And obviously the Mother Runes in the Melee Mage just protects the Melee Mage, which is awesome. So now it makes Mother Runes somehow even better because it protects your disruption instead of just like protecting your Savannah Lions or something random, like your White Knight or whatever. So that's great. That's really great. Oh, I'm talking so much, I'm getting so excited. Let me just take another drink. This is wonderful. Okay. Yeah, like I mentioned, got the Enlightened Tutor sideboard plan, nothing too weird there. I mean, of course, you'll adjust it to your metagame. Most of these cards you'll want to play just in general. But some cards are not played. So there's stuff like White Knight. White Knight is obviously a great card. It's a great card for this deck. But unless your meta was super infested with like mono black decks or something, it's not really worth playing because it's black is just so many ways of dealing with it. They can disc it away, they can keg it away, they can just ignore it. I mean, half the time, mono black decks will be running the Dothy guys, the shadow dudes. You can't block them, so that's not, it really reduces the value of White Knights pro black. Same thing with the white shadow guys. These cards are great. They're actually, better than Silver Knight at least versus like different like green decks with if they're playing Wall of Roots, Wall of Blossom, things like that. It can put on a really great clock, which is awesome, of course. But the problem is that they can't block, and that's the real big problem comes. The big problem from at least something like Sly, or I guess really goblins too. You really want to block that pile driver. You don't really want to let it hit you. That would be bad. The thing is, the problem with these decks, they have reach, and they can burn you out, especially since your clock is pretty slow. You really want to be able to block their guys profitably. That's why Silver Knight's played, because Silver Knight is awesome, and he can block, and he's great. Something like, Order of the White Shield is the one from Ice Age, the 2-mana 2/1 Pump Knight. So white to get +1/+0, and then white to give a first strike. That guy, I think that's the one from Ice Age. I think that's the legal one, because there's the ones from Fallen Empire. That's like Order of the White Shield, which is the same thing but not legal. It's hard to keep all these guys straight, but yeah. So these cards are good. I like the Pump Knights are pretty good. I play a couple. But I like Whip Quarter better than that because it's just more creature removal. It's good against the Reanimator decks or any other decks with big fatties. You can tap them down and swing on through, which is great. You can't search for them. It might be worth playing maybe something like a Ramosian Sergeant or whatever to search for the Whip Quarters, which might be kind of cool. But there's not really enough room for that. Maybe that's just too cute. So just playing the whip quarters alongside the plows is probably enough removal. Um, so yeah, but pretty much, nothing like Crusade or Glorious Anthem or anything like that. Although those are good with the Kaldoran outpost. They're a little too dirty, I think, and I think I'd rather just play more Disruption, well, like the Seal of Cleansing's main deck. And if I was probably going to play anything, I'd probably just play Divine Sacrament, because after an Armageddon, you usually have Threshold, and just one of those will give you +2/+2 to all your guys, so that's a little better. But yeah, so let's move on from that. So why should you play this? Well, basically, say like compared to like other white decks or something like Counter Rebels or whatever, you got better matchups against the red decks. Because you can play main deck Silver Knight, and I guess Rebels can play like main deck Mother Runes too, but the Silver Knight's really like the big one. Silver Knight's awesome. I mean, it's a decent creature by itself, 2 mana, 2/2 first strike, and then the Pro Red just pushes it over, and it's so good after board if you're boarding in the Worship. Worship plus Silver Knight's basically a hard block sans, well, obviously Anarchy. I mean, Anarchy can't beat if it resolves. Like, I mean, it's probably 0%. It's probably 0% of the history of the game. Anyone beat an Anarchy. Um, God, it's such a brutal card to deal with. Ugh. You don't want that to resolve. Thank God for Meddling Mage, right? Um, or I guess even Spiketail Hatchling, it is 4 mana. 2, you don't have to worry about Engineer Plague or things like Sabo's Tree or just stuff like that. At least the specialized hate mage for basically goblins, and I guess stuff like elves and counter rebels gets hit by it too. Engineer Plague, obviously you don't want to get hit by that card. That's bad. Um, so that's good. You can dodge that pretty easily. And deck's a little bit more proactive. I guess this is mainly owing to stuff like Savannah Lions. Savannah Lions is sweet. I mean, really, any reason to play Savannah Lions is good. And then the other one is we got Weather Wayfarer and Wasteland. So you can be counter rebels can't play like Wasteland, which is obviously a problem. And Armageddon, they can't really play it because they're so mana hungry. They're at least a little more slower. Um, and Savannah Lions, I mean obviously because it's sweet. Yep. So that's basically it. I mean it's a little sweet, a little easy, a little awesome, but this is a cool deck, so I think you guys will enjoy it. Anyways, that's it for today. Have a nice day. Bye.